Welcome back. In the last video, I talked a little bit about child parts and how they develop, but I want to talk to you a little bit more about that just in this 5-minute video. So when you are a young child, when you're first born, everything is done because it's based on your needs. You know, you cry, your caregivers are there, they feed you, they clothe you, they keep you warm. You have one form of language and interaction, and as long as that person is there for you and responding, then you have this kind of what we call a secure attachment and things are okay. As we grow up, we naturally kind of, lessen our dependency on the person who is the primary caregiver. And in lessening that dependency, we start to try and see who we are as individuals. So what I mean by that is, that's where you get children, the terrible twos where we throw tantrums. That's because we got so used to the parent or the caregiver actually knowing what we needed, we think that they can read our mind. So when we want something, as a 2-year-old, we're still struggling with language. So we don't have the language to ask for what we want. But when we want things and, up until this point, the parent has given you everything that you needed, but when it turns into a desire and I want instead of just what I need, sometimes the parent isn't going to give that to you because it's not good for you or not healthy or, potentially dangerous or whatever. But we don't understand it. We've had all our needs met to this point. We've now got desire and we want things, we don't get them met, which is why we throw tantrums, because we're frustrated. We can't get what we want. We kind of get used to that depending on how you parented, whether you were, smacked a few times or avoided or whatever it was, there was a way that we learned to cope. Then, we still think though that the parent knows exactly what we're thinking up until the age of 4. And at 4 is when we start to realize that what we think inside our head is not something that anybody else knows unless we tell them. And you'll know when this happens in a 4-year-old because they'll come and say to you, I've got a secret. And it's when they've got a secret that you actually understand that they now know that they can think something inside their head that the caregiver does not know unless they speak it. And it's a really important turning point in our development as human beings, because when we reach that point, we also start to recognize that we are getting into trouble for things and we start to take responsibility for stuff. So, and as a parent, we don't think about these things or the impact that it's having. We can't help it. We do what we think is right as a parent. The child is perceiving it in a different way. It doesn't make you a bad parent, just means that we have to understand these things and then try and do what we can to correct them along the way. So the parent then, they're getting, mad about something. The child is really starting at this point to feel that they've done something wrong and that they're responsible. So then it's like, I'm a bad person. And they only know, it's concrete thinking at this point, right? So they only understand black or white, right or wrong, I'm in trouble, I'm bad. Okay, and that's where we develop this sense of responsibility of being the bad one, of being rejected. And that kind of formulates that really base, withdrawn child part that sits actually as the basis of our personality. And we need to recognize it, because that's the part of you that when anything bad happens in your life and you're in tears and however you react, everybody's going to be a little bit different, that it's the really withdrawn part. If you get into that really negative sort of space and you're teary and you're sad and then you lash out, I want you to just recognize that when you lash out, you switched into your protector part. That this is the part of you that we've developed over the course of our lives to try and help protect us from further pain. So we lash out at people to try and get them to go away, or we withdraw ourselves from the situation in order to prevent more pain. When we recognize it, and we recognize that it's our little 4-year-old self, we can actually internalize within ourselves and go and give her or him, give him a hug, right? Recognize that it was hard for you when you were 4, hard for you to understand what was going on in your little world, and that when we have that feeling and we're feeling rejected, that we need to look at how we can care for ourselves and self-nurture. Because I guarantee you, and there's part of this in my book, if you want to go to The Trouble with Trauma, there's an audio file there that you can do this for yourself. There's a self-guided meditation where you can go and get connected to that inner child within you. And you've probably heard people talking about connecting with your inner child, but not a lot of people understand why we do it or how simple it is to do. But when you can start giving that inner child the love and the acceptance of who they really are, because when you think about yourself now, you've probably got lots of criticism sitting there. But when you rationally look at who you were as a 4-year-old, you were pretty damn special, right? We all were. There's nothing wrong with any of us at that point in time. We're still beautiful little cherubs who are just looking to absorb the way the world kind of works. And I think that this is an important part of that recognition, because what we've done is we've kind of taken this perception that we have about ourselves about being wrong when we're in trouble, and that's the most negative kind of part that we carry with us, and that's the part that makes us feel not good about ourselves, because that's where our sense of being not good enough actually comes from. So when we recognize that and we have a good understanding of our child parts, we can then start to see when we have an emotional trigger, then what we can do about, oh, there's the child in me. Oh, this is the 4-year-old. And, you know, I've talked about, there was another video that I put out ages ago where I got caught in an airport and had a panic attack. And I recognized straight away it was the 4-year-old because of the way that I was reacting. And I was reacting absolutely in fear. But because I understood it, I was able to then kind of take some control over it and change it and make it, you know, better. So I hope that helps to understand about child parts, because this is one of the things that we need to try and, you know, get around the base language and our behavior. And then we can work it out from there about, you know, what we do next to help us understand it. So in the next video, I'm going to talk to you about protector parts and understanding them a bit better.